My other two children are Christian, and I know Adnan wants this baby to be Muslim, which I'm fine with.
Why would you be fine with that? Religions are not just different book clubs, and you pick the book club you like the most. That is not how religion works.
Who were they written by?
How is it?
Who wrote it?
How wrote it?
So he's asking, who wrote the Quran? His English isn't that bad. I think he understands what is being said here, but I think he just doesn't know the answer, so he's acting like he doesn't understand. But don't worry, I can provide a little bit of a history lesson here because many versions existed before that were not all the same. Well, it's a tale as old as time. A Christian and a Muslim get married and they live in perfect harmony, happily ever after. All right, let's be real. This is from a reality show called 90 Day Fiance. They track couples who are, one of them is from abroad, from another country, and the other is from the US. And they just track the process of bringing that other person to the US. But in this case, we have a woman named Tiger Lily from the US and a man named Adnan from Jordan. So this is after they're already married and he is now arriving in the US.
In the beginning, Adnan was like okay with me being Christian and him Muslim, but then lately I think he really wants me to be Muslim. He bought me a Quran in English, he wants me to read it, and I haven't.
In the beginning, he said, no, it's fine. You don't have to be Muslim. Don't worry about it. Why are you concerned? I don't understand. And then now he's like, I really want you to become Muslim. You can't tell from this video, but she's pregnant. So I think as his child is arriving, he's like, no, actually, I want us to be a Muslim family. I want my kid to be Muslim and all that. So now he's putting more pressure on her. He bought her a Quran. So he wanted her to read the Quran and she hasn't. But if she were to read the Quran, let's see what it might say. What would she find in the Quran? Well, in chapter 4, verse 34 of the Quran, it says, quote, men are in charge of women because Allah hath made one of them to excel the other, and because they spend of their property for the support of women. So good women are the obedient, guarding in secret that which Allah hath guarded. As for those for whom ye fear rebellion, admonish them and banish them to beds apart and scourge them. So if your wife is rebelling against you, sleep separately from her and scourge them. Scourge meaning hit them, strike them. Other translations say strike them lightly. However, the word lightly does not exist in Arabic. So that is just something that is added in a translation to make things sound a little bit less mean. But basically, what this verse is encouraging husbands to do is that if your wife is disobeying you, expel them from your room, sleep separately from them, and if that doesn't work, then strike them, hit your wife so that she will be obedient to you. So there's just one example of something Tiger Lily might find in the Quran if she were to actually read it. So there you go.
My other two children are Christian, and I know Adnan wants this baby to be Muslim, which I'm fine with.
Why would you be fine with that? Let's just think about what this means. So if you're a Christian, you believe that Jesus Christ is the only way to get to heaven. That's what Christianity teaches. That's very clearly taught in the Bible. That's what, all of Christianity has believed for the entire 2000 years of its history, is that Jesus Christ is how you get to heaven. And maybe if you're a secular person, you might, have a hard time putting yourself in the shoes of a religious person who is considering the religion of their children. For religious people, like just try to think about this from a religious person's perspective. For religious people, believing in a religion, one religion or another, isn't just a matter of personal preference. It's not just a matter of, well, I like this religion more. It makes me feel better. So I'm going to go with this. But if you actually believe that truth exists, that it's possible to believe something that is not true, and that believing something that is not true can have negative consequences, then you would really care what your children believe. If you believe that there is one religion that leads to heaven, Muslims believe that religion is Islam, Christians believe that religion is Christianity, obviously, then being okay with your children choosing not that religion is you being okay with your children going to hell for eternity, being separated from you and from God for eternity after this life. That's not something you should be okay with. I feel like people think that that's very inclusive, to believe, oh, my children can choose whatever they want. That's not inclusive. That's not loving. That's not kind. That is you just not caring about your children the way you should.
You wanna teach your baby for pray for
Of course.
Islam?
Of course, my baby is Muslim.
Yes.
Yeah, like his father, right, baby?
Right, baby.
What is the religion of the deen?
Muslim baby.
I'm so lucky, baby, to have wife like you.
So nice.
But I will be more happy and be more glad when you be a Muslim, baby.
He actually makes more sense. He cares that his baby believes what he believes is true. So Adnan believes that if his child is not a Muslim, he's going to go to hell. So he wants his child to be a Muslim. That makes 100% sense. He also believes that his wife, if she's not a Muslim, she's going to go to hell. So he wants her to become a Muslim because he cares about the eternal destiny of his loved ones. That makes a lot of sense. To have the opposite view, to have her view, to say, actually, it doesn't matter what my children believe or what my husband believes. It's all a matter of personal preference. No, you're actually showing that you don't care about your loved ones because you don't care whether they believe in truth, and you don't care whether they where they go at the end after their life. So he's actually being logical. He makes sense. She doesn't make sense. If she believes Christianity is true, she should want him to convert to Christianity. She shouldn't be saying, "Well, sure, the kids can believe what you believe, and you don't have to convert to Christianity." She should be saying, "No, you should convert to Christianity, and our kids should be Christians because Christianity is the truth. And if you reject Christianity, you're going to go to hell. And I don't want that. I love you. I care about you." Now, don't get me wrong, that's going to cause a very interesting conversation in the family. That's going to cause a lot of anger and, conflict, but it's the truth.
Maybe you will change, not I changing you. You will change yourself. I'm just helping you, put you in the right way. Because you are my wife, I'm worried about you. I will
Yeah,
protect you. I want to saving you.
that makes sense. You're my wife. I care about you. I care about what happens to you after this life. So I want you to believe in the right religion so that we can be together after this life and so that you don't end up separated from me and from God for all of eternity. That makes more sense. I'm siding with the Muslim in this video. This guy makes more sense than she does. And she says she's a Christian. I can't judge that, from here. I don't know enough about her. But for her to say that I'm okay with my children being a different religion, that is not a Christian thing. That's not at that point you are directly contradicting Christianity and the core beliefs of Christianity.
So you're aware there's a lot of big changes that you're going to have to realize if you convert to Islam about the way you present yourself.
Yeah, but what the reason? Because I want to save her body, to not other people look into her body, right?
I mean, okay, so to be fair, when it comes to modesty, I think it's good to dress more modest. That's not a bad thing. Where it becomes weird in Islam is when they have like the full face covering, like you can't even see their eyes. That stuff is kind of crazy. That exists very commonly in some Muslim majority countries. And you even see that in some immigrants from those Muslim majority countries to Western countries like England and even the US. You see a lot of women from those countries that are dressed in these like black sheets where you can't even see their eyes. That's crazy. So a lot of people try to draw comparisons where they're like, why is it so bad for Muslim women to dress, modestly to cover their hair and all that? But it's okay for nuns to do it, for Catholic nuns, for example, to dress like that and cover their hair. Well, one is an example of somebody voluntarily doing that. So a nun, by becoming a nun, agrees to do that, and she's wearing that out of respect for God, out of humility before God. Whereas in Islam, it's forced out of submission to your husband, essentially.
But I don't know if like the Bible the right, because a lot of people change the Bible.
I don't know if the Bible's right because a lot of people change the Bible. Well, first of all, who changed the Bible, and what is one example of that? Because even atheists like Bart Ehrman, who are textual critics of the New Testament, will say that yes, there are many, many textual variants, but 95% of these amount to just spelling errors, grammar changes, and even Bart Ehrman, who is one of the harshest critics of Christianity, will say that none of these textual variants change core teaching of Christianity. So what somebody has to prove when they're saying that the Bible has been changed and therefore that's why you don't trust teachings like the Trinity or the crucifixion of Jesus or the resurrection or anything like that. Where and when did that change come into the Bible? Because we see these teachings and these beliefs in the early church. We see quotes from Christians as early as the first century talking about Jesus dying and rising on the third day, the Trinity, Jesus being God, his divinity, and all that.
Who were they written by?
How is it?
Who wrote it?
How wrote it?
So he's asking, who wrote the Quran? Like, okay, you're criticizing our book. Well, now your book, who wrote it? Who wrote your book? And Adnan, his English isn't that bad. I think he understands what is being said here. I don't think he's that confused, but I think he just doesn't know the answer. So he's acting like he doesn't understand because his English is pretty good. I mean, up until this point, they've been talking about all kinds of other stuff, and he hasn't had a problem understanding them or answering them in English. But now, when the question comes, who wrote your book? Now he's like, "What? I don't speak English. What's happening?" But don't worry, I can provide a little bit of a history lesson here for anybody who's interested in hearing who wrote the Quran and how did we get the version of the Quran that we have today, because many versions existed before that were not all the same. So the way the Quran was initially passed from Muhammad was through his speech. He would speak and say that these are revelations from God, and so here's what God has to say, and he would say things, and then it was written down by scribes. The problem is the way that Arabic works is that they don't include the vowels in the writing. You're supposed to just intuit what the word is based on the consonantal version of that word. So a lot of times in Arabic, unless you're reading like super beginner friendly Arabic, you're going to just see the consonants of a word, not necessarily the vowels, which means you're going to have to intuit what is intended by what you're reading before you can understand what you're reading. But what that means for early Muslims is that there were different interpretations of some of these Arabic words because the consonants weren't filled in for them, which meant that there were many different ways of reciting the Quran early on in Islam's history. And there were so many different versions of the Quran, and this became such a big problem that Uthman, who was a key figure early on in Islam's history, ordered the standardization of the Quran, and he had all of the different versions collected, burned the ones he didn't like, and kept the ones that he did like, and the one that he did like became the standard for everybody. But even after this, many different oral recitations of the Quran existed. And even today, many different written forms of the Quran can be found. The most common being the Hafs and the Warsh versions, but there are others as well. But what's really interesting is that before Uthman's standardization of the Quran, there were different versions that included some versions having more chapters to the Quran than the one that Uthman chose, and some having less chapters to the Quran than the one that Uthman chose. So there were actually differences in length of the Quran before Uthman standardized it. So all of this is to say that any Muslim who is going to criticize the Bible for having textual variants or something is going to also have to criticize the Quran for having many different versions of the Quran, including different chapter lengths. Before Uthman burned all the copies he didn't like, that contradicts very core talking points of many Muslim apologists who say that the Quran was perfectly preserved. There's only one Quran ever. All of that is just not true. So overall, very interesting situation. I'm curious to see how things turn out. I obviously wish everybody the best. I hope they have a happy marriage. I hope their children, are healthy and do well and everything like that. No ill will towards anybody. But again, it doesn't make sense to say that you're okay with your children being part of another religion. Religions are not just different book clubs and you pick the book club you like the most. That is not how religion works. Religions make very specific claims about reality that you can test and determine if they are true. Christianity's core claim is that Jesus Christ is God, which he proved by resurrecting from the dead. So if the resurrection is true, then Christianity is true. If the resurrection is false, then Christianity is false. So you can study the resurrection based on historical evidence and see what is the most likely true version of events based on the historical evidence that we have access to. I think when you do that, the resurrection is undeniable. On the other hand, Islam claims that Muhammad is the last prophet of God and that he delivered perfectly what God delivered to him through the angel Gabriel. So to test that, you can see, are there any errors in the Quran? And it turns out, yes, there are. You can watch my other videos for some examples of errors in the Quran, especially the Islamic dilemma, which has been undefeated up until now. Check out my other videos to see more about that. This video is for sure going to get demonetized because TLC copyright claims every video that even mentions any of their shows. So if you want to support this channel and you like the work we're doing here, you can go to patreon.com/sipswithsarah. You can become a member there and that will support what I'm doing here. And I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Members see these videos early. They get members only live streams and a members only channel where they can talk to me directly. And I'm very responsive. So greatly appreciate all the support, including prayers. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, God bless. Cheers with my weird coffee cup again. Cheers.